Good evening. Welcome to the Finance Committee meeting. Today is Monday, April 12th, 2021, and we are starting just a few minutes late due to some audio problems. It is 4:37 p.m., and this is our first meeting in the boardroom for about a year. So welcome. Can I go ahead and get a roll call?
I don't hear the conference room, so you need to unmute. There you go.
Okay, now open up your computer. Finance Committee Chair Cullen,
Present.
Madam Board President Galbraith,
No, I can't open it.
Amanda's muted,
Present, sorry, present.
Vice President Morgan, Board Member Coleman,
Here.
Board Secretary Scott.
Present.
We have 4 present this evening. Right, and we'll move on to the prioritized agenda. Is there any questions or changes? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
This is Board Member Coleman. I move to approve the agenda.
This
Okay,
is Board Member Scott. I'll second.
okay, I have Board Member Coleman as the motion and second is Secretary Scott. Can we go ahead and get a roll call for approval?
Finance Committee Chair Cullen,
Yes.
Madam Board President Galbraith,
Yes.
Vice President Morgan, Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
Board Secretary Scott.
Yes.
Okay, the agenda passes. We'll move on to the consider the approval of February 8th, 21st, unapproved Finance Committee meeting minutes. Was there any questions or changes? Okay, do I have a motion for approval of minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, I have President Colbreth. Do I have a second?
This is Board Member Coleman. I'll second.
Second on Coleman. Okay, can we go ahead and get a roll call?
Finance Committee Chair Cullen,
Yes.
Madam Board President Galbraith,
Yes.
Vice President Morgan, Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
Board Secretary Scott.
Yes.
Passes 0. We'll move on over to the monthly financial reports. Arlene?
Good evening, Madam Chair. Give me a minute here. I'm going to share my screen with you all. Okay, good afternoon, Madam Chair, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board. Before you is our March 2021 financial reports. I will point out that our percentage used is low in a normal year. Considering if we were to expend evenly throughout the year every month, we should be at approximately 75% used. In my next report, you'll see that the revenue is about that percentage. However, the expenses are not. But I would also like to bring to your attention that in the available balance column, in the first two line items, which is compensation and benefits. The combination of that is about 9 million plus, and 8.4 million of that is unencumbered at this point. We expect to use 8.4 million of that for items such as extended learning time. And if you have additional questions, Heather is here to let us know what other items are in that 8.4 million. The majority of it is the extended learning time. Madam Chair, if there's not any questions on this report, I will move to the next report.
There are no questions. Go ahead.
Thank you. So in our detailed report, this is our revenue. And as you can see, the percentage of our revenue is 74.9, just under 75%, as I spoke before. And then the following pages go into the detail of the expenditures by function, as was shown in the previous report, the overview report.
Did anybody have any questions? Okay. Sorry, did you say something, Mike?
Yeah, if there's no questions, I'd just like to, have a conclusion in regard to our financial reports.
Yes, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is the budget review.
Okay, I just would like to just kind of wrap up the financial reports, and as you can
Oh,
see,
sorry.
Pardon?
Go ahead. Sorry, there's such a delay.
Oh, okay. Well, let's start again. Madam Chair, Dr. Cleveland, members of the Finance Committee. So just to conclude the overview of the financials, as you can see, the revenue is exactly on target where it should be, and our expenditures are well below target, meaning that we are well within our budget at this point in time. And so that obviously is very good news. And so now we will move into the first presentation of the 2021-2022 fiscal year operational budget. And before we get to the slide presentation, I would just like to give you an overview of what we will be reviewing this evening. The first thing that I would like to say is that these are very preliminary budget numbers. And although we have put the majority of the budget together, there's still some work that needs to be done. I would consider this, for the most part, a status quo budget. However, you will see that there will be some significant changes that we will be talking about briefly today, and then later on in the evening when we meet at the board meeting. I would like you to take a look at the total revenue, or the green shaded area. And we literally received the unit value this past Friday at 4 p.m. And so we are changing these numbers as we are receiving the numbers from PED. The good news with the unit value increased 5.16%. However, we still do not have the 9/10 B5 form, so we don't know what is going to change in regard to units and/or factors. We do know that our at-risk index decreased for a loss of approximately just under 600,000. So that wasn't good for us. But the unit value, like I said earlier, did increase. We're looking at a total revenue of approximately $171 million. When we take a look at our expenditures, we are looking at this point, 171 million, most of which is comprised of salary and benefits at approximately 137. And then what we do in order to balance the budget, we have additions and subtractions. We believe that we will have a vacancy savings of about $1 million. Because we have decreased student enrollment, we will be decreasing our staff. This does not mean that anybody will be laid off. This is only vacancy positions. And we're looking at a savings of approximately $3.2 million. Schools and department budgets are approximately $39.5 million. We do have a decrease to our instructional material budget of approximately $900 million. And in order to balance, we had to reduce the unreserved restricted line item by 500,000. And we have 650,000 in for Independence High School that we will likely transfer to the CARES budget, but we will probably take it out of the operational budget. Going to your right on the same form, kind of like a golden color, are our future meeting dates in regard to budget approval. We're meeting today with you all. On May 10th, we will have more precise numbers for the Finance Committee. We will go over in much more detail what the budget consists of. And then we will be asking the school board to approve the budget, which will then later be submitted to PED on May 28th. It will come back to the board for final approval on June 14th. If you go down into the difference between revenue and expenditures, you can see that at this point we have a balanced budget. Some of the mandatory increases to the budget had to do with a salary increase established by the legislature. Approximate cost is $1.8 million. Increases in educational retirement benefits of approximately $1 million, and medical premiums in regard to district cost, approximately $575,000, for a total mandatory additions of just under $3.4 million. Some of the items that are significant that you will be listening to in detail at the board meeting this evening have to do with the potential to create a virtual elementary school and the expansion of the Cyber Academy, which will be over $1 million. The addition to the additional personnel of the Student Support Center is 291, for a total of approximately $1.3 million. So that is a budget overview. Now, if we can go to our slides.
And there, Chairperson Cullen, there's just some questions.
Yes,
So-
go ahead, Board Member Coleman, before we move on to the slides.
Yes, so I have just a few kind of different ones. How much did the SEG go up? Again, Mike, you had said.
Yeah, 5.16%.
Okay. And when it comes to the CARES Act, where will we see that entered?
This budget. So we will have the CARES should be wrapped up by May 10th.
And where, though, I mean, like, where specifically will it be within the budget? I'm just curious where it falls.
It's not in there yet. We will put it in the budget document, and we will let you know where specifically it is in the budget.
Okay, and then this might be premature leading up to the next meeting, but the increase in salary for the Student Support Center,
That's actually increasing personnel for the Student Support Center.
okay.
I misspoke.
Will we be getting more information on the increase for that tonight?
Well, we know that's going to be approximately 291,000, but on May 10th, we will go over in detail in regard to allocations.
Okay, I'm just curious how much, what we're needing. That's even in addition to the other increases that we've approved for that, right?
Yeah, so later on in the presentation, we'll talk a little bit more detail about the Student Support Center.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Did
so,
anybody else-
pardon.
I was going to say, did anybody else have any questions right now?
Yes.
Okay, Secretary Scott.
Yes, could you tell us what the unit value is? You told us it went up 5.16%, but what is?
Yes, the unit value is $4,770.70. A lot of sevens in there.
Yeah. So 4770.70.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
But let me be clear on our revenue. Just because the unit value is that, and just because the unit value went up 5.16, we still don't have our 910B5 form. And so where our revenue is generated is essentially on three different factors. One is the unit value. The other are the units, but also the factors that increase or decrease the number of units. So that earlier I said these are very preliminary numbers. So on this sheet, you'll see that our SCG is projected to be 154. That number will change once we get our 910B5. And so I say that these numbers are preliminary. We still don't have all the information in from PED, and we still don't have a more precise accounting of our student enrollment numbers at this point. So these numbers will change.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. I appreciate the complete answer. Thanks.
Okay, I think we can go ahead and move on.
Okay, next slide. Okay, so what we will be doing this evening is we are going to be taking a look at the budget, kind of at the executive level. I do want to review our organizational structure and how it relates to the budget. May 10th, we will go into a bit more detail, specifically on salary and benefits. Next slide. So in the 21-22 fiscal year, I wanted to ensure the Finance Committee that once again, we're still kind of in this COVID pandemic, and things are changing pretty much every week in regard how we're going to educate our students now and into next year. Again, I just want to reiterate that our budget projections at this point is very preliminary. PED did not inform the district of the unit value during spring budget workshop, which is the norm. So these numbers, literally, we obtained these numbers again this past Friday at 4 o'clock. So Friday late afternoon, we're literally plugging numbers into the budget. and we had to present these numbers to you today. So I wish I could give you a complete budget picture this evening, but unfortunately we cannot, because we rely on PED to actually provide those numbers. And as I said, we still have yet to receive our 910B5 form, so that SEG projection is likely going to change. Some of the budget challenges moving forward. Again, we do not know exactly what our revenue is going to be at this point. However, our projections are pretty good, likely within 1% or so of our actuals. We do not know how many students will register with Rio Rancho Public School this year, and that will have obviously a dramatic effect on our SEG. We do not know how many students will register for virtual only school. Although that will not have an impact on SEG, it will have an impact on our expenditures. This year, we opened up Joe Harris Elementary, which was obviously a new school. So a lot of resources were focused on that school. Although Shining Star wasn't a new school, the move from the old school to the new school did have a fairly significant impact on our budget. Going into next year, we will be opening up essentially, although technically it's not a new school, it is a new program, pretty significant program that will be opening up next school year. And again, we will be using operational dollars for that. The other challenge is we still have not received the amount of our title funds. And although our title funds are special funds, they do have an impact on our operational funds. So there's a number of pretty important numbers that we have yet to receive from PED. And one of the reasons why, typically in a 60-day session, those numbers are released late, but they should have been released by now. So we will be, again, reviewing RRPS at the executive level. And so the first executive department that I want to review is the superintendent's budget. The superintendent's budget is essentially made up of 4 main departments, that being the athletic department, the fine arts department, RADA, and student services. And as you can see, the fine arts department is made up of a variety of different art forms. And student services is made up specifically, mostly of counselors and nurses. That's the biggest component. This evening, I just plan on going over some of the major funding changes to those budgets. The 2 main changes to the superintendent's budget is adding 2 nursing staff to the comprehensive high schools. This is something that the board has requested. And we did move the legal budget from the superintendent's into essentially its own department. The next executive level department is the Chief Academic Officer. The Chief Academic Officer is made up of the C&I departments, the elementary and secondary, CTE, which is a fairly new department, federal programs, the school improvement officers, and special services. The major changes there, if you have been looking in the department budgets, there's an appearance that the special services department saw a large increase of 16% in their expenditures. Most of their budget is diagnosticians, specialists who include sign language, behavior analysts, etc., social workers, psychologists, counselors, speech therapists, audiologists, and occupational therapists. The special services budget has not really increased by 16%, and that is because what happens with special services is there's a balance between between our employees who have these ancillary designations and contractors. And so what happens, it's kind of like a balance. When our employee ancillary folks, when we have a decrease in employees, we have to have an increase in contractors. And conversely, when we have an increase or a decrease in our employees, or an increase in our employees, we have a decrease in our contractors. And so we look for this balance. And so typically what happens in the budget is the budget basically changes between employees and between contractors. So if you see the big increase there, it's because of that balance between employees and contractors. The next major increase has to do with the structured literacy budget. And this was a new budget for the 2021 school year that we really just got approved fairly recently from the school board. This year, the literacy budget was approximately $375,000. Next year, we're budgeted at $465,000. In addition, and I hope this answers Member Coleman's answer, is the new Student Support Center. We have new positions that will be budgeted this year, and that is 2 additional teachers, 2 additional EAs, 1 counselor, and 1 security. That is in addition to what we currently have. The estimated cost, additional cost on that is approximately $292,000. The next budget at the executive level is my budget, and that's Chief Operations Officer. And that comprises of the Facility Department, the Finance Department, the Human Resources Department, IT Department, Safety and Security, and Transportation. The major changes to my budget has to do with information technology, and that is, you'll see a big change in the software. We had quite a bit of funding that was previously paid from CARES funding that will be moved into operations. And we also had software that was previously paid from SB9 that will also be moved into operational. Additional funding to fund the potential of virtual school is in the budget as well. And you'll be hearing about the addition to the virtual schools that will the district will be asking for your approval later on this evening. We did put in for bathroom and other remodeling at Independence High School. We've had great difficulty getting PED to approve that. We still really don't have approval on the actual construction. We only had approval on the design aspect of it. We may have to move this into our CARES budget. It appears that if you're just looking at dollar for dollar at the facility budget, there gives an appearance that there's a dramatic increase in the facility budget. However, this is due to this year we had $1.7 million budgeted in facilities in order to do the construction of the Student Support Center. So obviously for next year that goes away. So there gives an appearance that that budget has decreased, and that has not happened. The next budget in regard at the executive level has to do with Chief of Communications. And the major change to that is a survey for redistricting, which is approximately $25,000. The next budget has to do with the Office of Legal Counsel, and the bulk of the legal counsel has to do with outside legal fees. That cost is approximately estimated at $197,000. But I would like to highlight the legal counsel budget. One of the reasons for adding legal counsel, and I think this is our second year of this particular budget, was to try to decrease our legal fees. And our legal fees for outside counsel was increasing fairly dramatically year after year. For example, in the 18-19 budget, and this was just in the superintendent's budget, not the entire district, our outside legal fees cost approximately $336,000. In 19-20, our legal fees decreased by $151,000 when we brought on our legal staff. And to date, right now, our legal fees are a little over $20,000. So although we spend over $100,000 on our legal counsel and that staff, you can see that the savings is dramatic. Lastly, we have our fiduciary account. Although we call it a budget, there's really no personnel that are assigned to it. However, it has a fairly significant amount of funding in that. Just to review that, our reserve accounts are the bulk of this budget. We have put away 2% of our reserve at approximately $3.1 million. We have property insurance at $3 million. We have our unrestricted reserve at $2 million, which we did reduce in order to balance the budget. We had instructional materials at 2.5, but recently we received the projection on our expenditures at 1.6 million, so that was reduced $900,000. We do anticipate a continued transportation shortfall of approximately $1 million. And we previously, when we knew we were going to build Joe Harris Elementary over a number of years, we were putting money in our fiduciary in order to offset the opening cost of that school. And because that school is open, we no longer have the reserve account for that. So with that being said, that is a snapshot of the major changes to the 21-22 fiscal year budget. So myself, Arlene, and Heather are here to answer questions.
Board Member Coleman, do you have any questions?
Yes. So I'm just curious now. I would assume that when you were looking at the addition for the student services, that was anticipated because that's staffing, correct?
Yes, I mean, the student services budget has, over time from the beginning has changed, but that's what we are anticipating now. And what very well could happen is, and one of the reasons why we do have a reserve account, if our student population in that program increases, we will have to increase the staffing. And so the budget is situated now at our projections on our student enrollment for the Student Support Center. But we believe that going into, or hopefully we'll be leaving this pandemic, but we believe that we'll be ramping up that program. And so it will likely be starting with small numbers.
Okay. Then I also had a question about our legal fee. How many different firms are we working with independent of the district?
Yeah, I believe we have at this time, and it varies from year to year, but I believe that there are 4 different firms that we have been working with this fiscal year. And so when I gave you those numbers, those numbers on the legal fees were not the entire district. for example, student services have legal fees. And so it was never the intention for our legal counsel to go into that area of the law at this time. And so I did not present those numbers because that was not an expectation. So if we were to take the legal fees from the entire district, the number would be much larger. I only focused on what our legal counsel essentially, what their job is focused on. And that is essentially the rest of the district.
Do you mind if I piggyback on that one, Board Member Coleman? So, because you were saying that back in 1819, it was the cost of $336. So then what are we paying in salaries of our attorney? And I believe there's a paralegal now, as well as benefits.
Yeah, I don't have that number. I said that it was earlier. I said it was well over 100,000, but we'll provide that.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'm getting a lot of feedback, so I apologize. I would also be curious to know that the amounts that we're spending.
I think it's Dr. Cleveland. Dr. Cleveland, could you mute yourself, please?
It's not Dr. Cleveland. It's coming out of the other room is where we're getting it from, the finance room. Yeah. I think she wants to say something to add.
Okay, I did. So my other question was, I'm still getting a lot of feedback. The amounts that we're spending, how much are we spending with the different firms? And I'd like to just kind of get an idea of our expenses, what's going to what firm.
Yeah,
You might need to get back with us on that, but I would like to know that, please.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, is that all, Board Member Coleman? Okay. Secretary Scott, did you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay, they don't have any more questions. I do, because I was starting to go through the budget, and I see that we have 6% budget cuts across the board for all the departments. And what was, can you remind the board what those 6% cuts were
Yes.
done for?
Yes. So, Madam Chair, Dr. Cleveland, members of the school finance committee, what we did is last year, in order to balance the budget, what we did is, in order to balance the budget, we cut each department by 6%. And knowing essentially that we were going into revenue-wise a somewhat similar year, we knew that we had to hold those departments at a status quo level. So that's where we're at. So most of the departments are at the same level as they were last year with the 6% cut. And the purpose of it, again, was to balance the budget without cutting personnel.
Okay, and our next meeting you have is May 10th, but we only have an hour, so you're not looking at having any type of workshop to go over the budget like we've done in the past? Because there's only an hour scheduled for the finance committee on May 10th.
And we have to approve it that day too.
Yeah, we will be looking at, we'll look at maybe some extended period of time, or maybe even dates before then.
Yeah, just because an hour just before we head into a board meeting. So if there's any questions or anything like, any conversations that need to happen, it's really difficult to try to get ready for the next board meeting.
Yeah, so we'll poll the board to see how much time and/or what day or times would be accommodating to you all.
And this is Board Member Coleman. I'm going to request that we meet another time before, because what my experience has been is that there are questions that need answered before we approve the budget. So for this to be our meeting and then go into that meeting and then go into approving it, so you can, I would ask that we have one other meeting beforehand.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what he was saying. Okay. All right, is there any other questions or comments? Okay, because I think my next question will be at the next board meeting.
I think
Cetera.
Dr. Cleveland has some questions, it looks like.
Just a couple of comments, quickly. Madam Chair, can you hear me? No?
If the board, oh,
Yes.
there, they just
There-
muted. Yay!
Okay, now we can, thank you.
Okay. You sound garbled too. I don't know what to do about it. Let me try.
You sound really good now, Dr. Cleveland.
Am I okay now? All right. I'm not sure what the problem is. I just want to emphasize a couple of things that the finance staff has said. We still have, there's so much we don't know, but we do know we're going to have considerably less than what we thought. And we also are down considerably in terms of, not knowing how many students are coming back. And, the PD is saying to us, go ahead and budget for those students. I think that would be very unwise to budget for those students, because we don't know if they're coming back or not. We could easily overextend our budget if we were to do that. I think it's really important for the community to know there was no hold harmless. And so that is not, that is not on the table. And that may prove to be problematic, not only in operations, but I don't know whether transportation made it or not. I've heard two different stories, so I guess we'll wait and see. So again, thank you, the finance staff, for doing a really comprehensive job of covering the information. I do agree we need to come back and provide some more detailed information. The other thing, I guess, Madam Chair and also President Galbraith, I think, we've had a couple of people watching and listening today. They are not being able to hear the board very well at all with the masks. So I think that's just something we have to think about. It's very hard for you to be heard or understood. And so I really don't know what that means for our regular board meeting, but I think we will definitely be sure that our presenters are in their offices here and are presenting without their masks, so that you can hear them very clearly. And what you do with your own individual situation is certainly up to the board. But again, we don't know what, there's still a lot of unknowns in this budget. We know we're not going to have as much as what we originally thought. We know we are not being held harmless. And we do know that there have been some increased expectations for the state. And we can certainly, cover some of those in a future meeting. But obviously there's more money for retirement, and hopefully we're going to get enough to cover the staff's costs for that. But there's also some other increased costs as well, and fixed costs. So I think as Mike Baker said, we've been thinking about this all along, and I think we've got a very good plan. I think they've been right on top of everything. But it's really a mistake for people to think that we're going to have 6% more money than we had last year, because we're not. And so I just want to be sure everybody is understanding that while the unit value went up, the number of student reduction right now would result in considerably less money than we have right now. But again, we don't know how many kids are coming back. There's just so much that is unknown. But anyway, thank you. Wow. I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cleveland. All right, if there's nothing else, Did you have anything else, Mike Baker?
Madam Chair, I think that's good for now. You have about 10 minutes before the next meeting.
Yep. Okay, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.